Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So as you can see the title, it's Linux operating system. We are going to see the basics of Linux and Ubuntu. So Linux is an open source operating system. This OS sits between the application and hardware and makes all the connections of your software and the physical resources that do the work. Now, from smartphones to cars, supercomputers and home appliances, home desktops to enterprise servers, the Linux operating system is everywhere. The Linux is also distributed under an open source license, that is, open source follows key tenets. Now, what does this Linux operating system consist of? Well, it consists of a bootloader, that is like example grub or GRAND unified loader. The software that manages the boot process of your computer. For most users, this will simply be a splash screen that pops up and eventually goes away to boot into the operating system. That is your grub or GRAND unified bootloader. The next piece of Linux operating system is the kernel. This one is the lowest level of the OS. This one piece of the whole that is actually called Linux. The kernel is the core of the system and manages the CPU, memory, and peripheral devices. The next one is the init system. This is a subsystem that bootstraps the user space and is charged with the controlling daemons. One of the most widely used init systems is System D. It is the init system that manages the boot process once the initial booting is handed over from the bootloader. The next one is daemons. These are background devices, that is like printing, sound, scheduling, that either start up during boot or after you log in to the desktop. Now the next one is graphical server. This is a subsystem that displays the graphics on your monitor. It is commonly referred to as X server or just X. The next one is the desktop environment. This is the piece that the users actually interact with. There are many desktop environments to choose from, like Genome, Cinnamon, Mate, Pantheon, Enlightenment, KDE, XF, CE, and many more. Each desktop environment includes built-in applications such as file managers, configuration tools, web browsers, and games. The next one is applications. Desktop environments do not offer the full array of apps. Just like Windows and Mac OS, Linux offers thousands upon thousands of quality software titles that can easily be found and installed. Most modern Linux distributions include app store tools that centralize and simplify application installation. For example, the Ubuntu Linux has the Ubuntu Software Center, and these are the applications like Skype, Spotify, Slack, Discord, CodeBird, and many more. These are the applications that are included in the Ubuntu software, which allows you to quickly search among the thousands of apps and install them from one centralized location. Let us see the comparison, the difference between Windows and Linux. Windows OS is a commercial operating system, so the user doesn't have access to source code. Linux is an open source operating system, so user can change source code as per the requirement. Linux kernel released in 17th September 1991 and Windows was released in 1985. Linux was developed by Linus Torvalds and Windows OS was developed by Microsoft. Windows is less reliable when compared with Linux. And Linux is highly secure and reliable since it focuses more on the uptime, system security, and process management. The Linux OS gains some knowledge on how to use and perform day-to-day operation. Users need an in-depth understanding of the underlying system, whereas Windows OS is very easy to use, and two of its major design characteristics are simplicity and user-friendliness. Linux installation involves complications, but this can complete complex tasks faster. And Windows installation is very easy, but it takes time. Now we see the difference between the Linux and the Unix. Linux is an operating source system, development and free operating system used for computer hardware and software, game development, PCs, etc. Unix is an operating system which is basically used in Intel, HP, Internet servers. Linux has priced as well as freely distributed and downloaded versions. Different versions and flavors of Unix have different priced structures. Users of this operating system, that is the Linux, could be anyone, including home users or developers. The operating system, this operating system, that is the Unix, was developed for mainframe servers and workstations except for OS X, which is designed such that it can be used by anyone. The file support system in Linux is EX2, EX3, EX4, and so on. The file support system in Unix is JFS, GPFS, HFS, etc. Now we'll see the type of users in Linux: the root user, the regular user, and the service account. So the root user, this is the main account in Linux system. It is automatically created during installation. It has the highest privilege in system. It can do any administrative work and can access any service. And it can't be deleted, but if required, it can be disabled. It should not be used for any routine activities. Then now we see the regular user. So the regular user, that is denoted by the $, and the root user is denoted by the hashtag. So this is normally user account, but the installation, that is one regular user account, is created automatically. After the installation, we can create as many regular user accounts as we need. This account has moderate privilege. This account is intended for routine works. It can perform only one task for which it is allowed and can access only those files and services for which it is authorized. As per the requirement, it can be disabled or deleted. So, the next one is the service account. Take the orange one. So the service accounts are created by installation packages when they are installed. These accounts are used by services to run the process and execute functions. These accounts are neither intended nor should be used for routine work. So the three types of users in Linux are the root user, the regular user, and the service account user. The Linux distribution. So the best Linux distribution First thing, what is Linux distribution? Different Linux distributions are suited for different purposes. Now, which Linux distribution you should use will depend on what you're doing it and what you're doing with it and your personal preferences. So the best Linux distribution for desktop or laptops is Ubuntu, Arch Linux, Fedora, Debian. The best Linux distribution for security is Kali Linux. And the best distribution for enterprise server distros is SUSE, Red Hat, CentOS. The Linux directory structure. So we'll see the Linux directory structure. This directory structure includes the bin, sbin, etc, dev, proc, var, tmp, usr, home, boot, lib, opt, mnt, media, and srv. So what are they? Bin is the user binaries, sbin is the system binaries, etc is the configuration files, device files, proc is the process information, var is the variable files, tmp is the temporary files, usr is the programs, the user programs, home directories, then bootloader files, system libraries, optional applications, mount directory, removable devices, and service data. So you'll see them all one by one. The bin commands. So what is bin? The essential command binaries that need to be available in single user mode. So the different kinds of bin commands are cat, ls, cp, like ps, ls, ping, grep. Commands used by all the users of the system are located here. Now what is sbin? The essential system binaries. Just like bin, the sbin commands also contain binary executables. So these examples include IP tables, reboot, ifconfig, reboot, fdisk, etc. The etc, host-specific system-wide configuration files, contains configuration files required by all programs. This also contains startup and shutdown shell scripts used to start or stop individual programs. So some of these examples include the networking restart, start to stop, and resolve.conf and rotate.conf. The dev includes essential device files. That is, these include the terminal devices, USB, or any devices attached to the system. So that could be the dev, TTY1, and USB Mon 0. The proc commands, that is the process information, virtual file system providing process and kernel information as files. In Linux corresponds to a proc's mount that is generally automatically generated and populated by the system. This is a pseudo file system, contains information about running process. So some of these include like uptime, downtime, etc. The var commands, that is the variable files, that is files whose content is expected to continually change during the normal operation of the system, such as logs, spool files, and temporary email files. That is, these are the examples, that is Apache 2 error log or DHCPD log. The home commands, there is a user's home directories containing saved files, personal settings. Home directories for all users to store their personal files. That could be home, your username, or anything. USR commands, that is the secondary hierarchy for read-only users' data. Contains the majority of multi-user utilities and applications. Contains binaries, libraries, documentations, and source code for second-level programmers. Some of these examples include AT, AWK, CC, LESS, and SCP. Thank you. If you like the explanation, please do like the video too. See you in the next video of Linux operating system.